It's wonderful.
No, I'm sorry. In the weeks following the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, people gathered together, families waited for names to be announced. Smoke literally still hung over lower Manhattan. People were still waiting for answers, trying to figure out what exactly happened. And in that time, a British worship leader, a guy named Matt Redman, and his wife were in the United States, and they were visiting different congregations, and as they visited congregations, and they were part of this whole experience, experiencing this with us as the American people. One thing they noticed was that in their the congregations they visited, in the contemporary worship, the new worship songs, there were a lot of songs that were very celebratory. There were a lot of ways that they saw that there were ways to celebrate and to worship with joy. But what they noticed, or what they felt anyway, is that there was a lack of a language for grief, for national grief, for shared grief. And it is in these moments, as they toured and traveled, that Matt and Beth Redman wrote the song we just learned. These lyrics, not lyrics that are written in a time of comfort, not written in a time of ease, but literally in the shadow, in the aftermath of great tragedy. And it's going to take us back. Elijah got ahead of me there. It's going to take us back to a man hundreds and hundreds of years ago, sitting in ashes. And what we see from this song, and what we'll see from this gentleman we'll look at, is worship's not circumstantial. Praising God is not based on situations. Worship, honoring God, is a deliberate decision that we just make, that we just decide we're going to do. We're going to bless the name of the Lord, whether He gives or whether life goes sideways. We live in a world that is full of unexpected diagnoses, financial instability, family problems, cultural issues. And we tend to be pretty good, as the song said, we tend to be pretty good at praising God when we're in a land of plentiful. But our challenge is how to worship when the road is marked with suffering. And if we don't develop a practice or a theology of worship, even in times of difficulty, our praise and maybe our faith can collapse when our comfort does. Job 1, 20 through 22 provides that anchor, that foundation of theology. If you want to turn over that way, we're going to look at 4 different things just really quick from the ashes with Job. As we approach Job chapter 1, verse 20, you're probably familiar with what happens, but if you're not, in verses 13 through 19, in what seems to be about 3 waves, Job loses his livestock and his servants, and then ultimately his children. And as we get to chapter 1, verse 20, Job says that after he's heard all of this, just one messenger after another, your livestock, your servants, your livestock, your servants, now your children. Then Job stood up, tore his robe, and shaved his head. And he fell to the ground and worshiped. Tearing the robe, shaving the head, these are very public displays of grief, very public displays of sorrow in the ancient Near East. Job's not trying to be, this isn't a practice of saying I'm going to tear my robe and shave my head because it's a show. He's not being stoic. He's not being ostentatious. He is grieving. He is a broken man. He's lost his children. And in the same breath, the text tells us he worships. This idea of worship, it literally means to bow down. This is complete reverence. This is complete submission to God. And what we need to see is the text doesn't say he stopped grieving to worship. It doesn't say he waited till things got better and then he worshiped. In the middle of his grief, in the middle of his sorrow, he worships. That shows us worship coexists even with our grief, even with our sorrow. You think just in our culture today, I mean, just in our society today, the number of tragedies that have happened. We've had school shootings. We've had just other shootings. We've had just horrific, senseless death. We've had, I mean, just in the last 24 hours, we've mentioned it a couple of times, we're experiencing war. We've lost soldiers all across the world. Natural disasters in the Congo, they're dealing with famine and disease as a result of it. In Haiti, there's hunger, there's poverty, and there's corruption that adds to all of it. So we're surrounded by that, but we are people who, because we're people of faith, we want to sing, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." And sometimes we have to do it through tears. Sometimes we sing, "Blessed be your name," as tears stream down our faces. Not because we're trying to deny the horror, not because we're trying to look the other way and make it go away, but because it is, for us, it is an affirmation that God is still God. And that God's worth isn't diminished. God's presence isn't diminished. Just like, I mean, for Job, his children were still gone when he worshiped. When Matt Redman wrote this song, the 3,000 plus that died in the Twin Towers were still gone. But it was an acknowledgement that God is still in control. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, we read that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And then if you go down through that passage, it talks about Jesus having to go outside the city gates to suffer, because suffering was what he was here to do. And as you get down to verse 14, "But for we do not have an enduring city here. Instead, we seek the one to come. Therefore, through him," through Jesus, who also suffered, "through him let us continually offer up to God a sacrifice of praise, that is the fruit of our lips." Even in the midst of suffering, even in our struggle, we offer that sacrifice of praise. We have to remember that when we experience it, you guys with little kids, when you experience that grief, when you see a national tragedy, when you experience that sorrow for culture, for our society, and you want to shed tears. Let your kids see that. It might be good for their faith and your faith. For our teenagers, dealing with the emotions that you deal with, the feelings, the challenges that you all deal with, heartbreak or disappointment or anxiety about your future. Don't feel like that disqualifies you from worship. Just because you're stressed out, just because you're not sure about what to do, worship anyway. For our older saints, you're experiencing, maybe your body's not doing what it's supposed to do anymore. Maybe it's the loss of a spouse. Worship in those moments is not hypocrisy. It's not fake. It's what God asks for. God says, "Come and I'll embrace you even in your worship." See, worship can be full of joy, can be full of praise and happiness, but worship is not pretending like everything's okay. Worship is an acknowledgement sometimes that it's not okay. And just saying, "I'm laying this at God's feet. And blessed be the name of the Lord." We see from Job, he's doing more, though, than just expressing his emotion, because he's making a theological statement here. In verse 21, he says, this is what Elijah read. He said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will leave this life. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord anyway." Anyway, it's probably not in your translation. That's in the Davison translation. But that's what he's saying, is that's how it works out. Now, what Job is doing here is affirming God's sovereignty. Listen, we have a backstage view of this. We know what happened in verses 1 through 12, right? We know Satan was involved in this. Job doesn't. Job doesn't know what happened. And Job says, I'm going to worship God anyway. And Job says, God gives and the Lord takes away. He is saying that God, that if we're going to limit God to just doing good things, we're limiting His sovereignty. And Job's making it clear that he's not doing that. I have sat with some of you in the midst of grief and in your pain, and I've heard some of you say God is still on His throne. I'm dealing with loss. I'm dealing with tragedy in my life, but God is still God. Our grief can be visible, and our grief can be intense, and our theology about God can stay intact. Now, I'll tell you my opinion. I believe Job is incorrect when he says God takes away. Because again, we have the backstage view. We know the arrangement. We know that God said, okay, you want to try this guy and see if he loses his faith? Go for it. But you can't take his life. I believe what we see here is God allows Satan to work on Job's life in a supernatural sort of way. It's not what he does now, but God still allows natural things to happen. God may sovereignly permit things to happen which He hates. Murder, disease, war, pestilence, all these terrible things. God allows those to happen. Doesn't mean He likes it. And it doesn't mean He initiates it either. But what we see here is that Job is saying, and from his perspective, if God did take all that from me, how can I worship God if I just am going to worship God when He gives me stuff? Because that's exactly what Satan said, right? Satan said, these people just worship you because you do good things for them. Take all that good stuff away from them, they'll walk right away. I mean, and it's almost as if Job answers Satan right here and says, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But notice, if you saw it in the hymn, and I hope you did as we sang this song, to me the best lines of this whole song are, my heart will to say. Because it's hard to make that choice sometimes. In grief, in anxiety, in anger, my heart will choose to say, blessed be the name of the Lord. And what I did right there, I shouldn't have done that. That's not just to throw up your hands and say, well, I can't do anything about it anyway. It's saying, I am still God's person. No matter what. No matter what the situation brings. My heart will choose to say. It tells us our faith isn't sustained by emotions. Our faith isn't sustained by feelings. Something we need to emphasize with new Christians. This joy, this happy, everybody loves me, everybody's hugging on me feeling, that's going to go away. And you're going to be in the grind of it someday. Your heart needs to choose to say, blessed be the name of the Lord. As we get older, parents, grandparents, you got to model this. You're going to have days you wake up and you don't feel like praising the name of the Lord. Do it anyway. Not mechanically, but because God is worthy of it. And in that, when Job shows us that we can say, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. And blessed be the name of the Lord. Job shows us something that even takes it a little bit higher. He shows us that faith in trial is the highest form of praise. Because look at what the next verse says. He says, blessed be the name of the Lord. Verse 22 says, throughout all this, Job did not sin or blame God for anything. Now, Seems to contradict some of the things Job will say a little bit later. But Job, it says he doesn't sin. He doesn't give up on God. He doesn't walk away. He asks God some hard questions, and then God starts to answer him, which would be terrifying in and of itself. But it says that he did not sin, even in the middle of all of this. Again, in that, if you will, that courtroom scene to open the book, there's Satan saying, you take this stuff away from this guy, he will walk away from you. You take away his wealth, you take away his prestige, you take away his family, he will drop you like a dirty shirt. And God says, try him. And in it all, the text tells us he doesn't sin. When the faith remains, when the blessings fade, God is so glorified in that. You think about Acts chapter 16. You think about Paul and Silas. We always jump, or I guess maybe I do. I jump to this verse, chapter 16, verse 25. But you read before that, and it gives you the description of everything that happens to them. That they're beaten, they're whipped, they're put in stocks, and they're put in prison. And Acts chapter 16, verse 25 says about midnight, Paul and Silas were in this prison, and they were just bawling their eyes out. What were they doing? They're singing praises to God. And what else was happening? The other prisoners were hearing it. You think that doesn't glorify God? That is Job chapter 1 in action in Rome. And listen, Satan obviously thought you take this from Job, he'll quit. He'll walk away from you. That seems to be kind of what Rome thought. You beat these guys enough and throw them in prison long enough, surely they're going to stop talking about this Jesus guy. They sing, they pray, not when the pain subsides, not when the wounds heal, not after the doors open, but while they're in the middle of it. That's what Richard talked about this morning a little bit. That's being salt and light. That's Matthew 5:16. It's not in Matthew 5:16, but we can add this. Sort of. You can't add it, but bear with me. We can say, even when things are terrible, even when things are rough for me, I'm going to let my light so shine and let people see my good works so that they might do what? That they might glorify the God that I'm trying to glorify, even in the middle of my suffering. Even in the middle of this trauma that I'm going through. Satan still whispers that same accusation. You take away these people's comfy pews. You take away their affluence. You take away whatever. All those people will walk away. But every time a faithful Christian honors God in the hospital room, in the unemployment office, in that wayward child's bedroom, God is glorified. Worship doesn't cancel our grief. Worship doesn't negate our sorrow. But neither does our grief or sorrow take us away from worship. They're companions, or they can be. Maybe they should be. Our suffering doesn't cancel God's sovereignty. He's still in charge. Even if things are going bad for me personally, even if things go bad for all of us at once, God's still in charge. Our feelings don't control our faith, and ultimately our faithfulness, our honoring our commitment to God glorifies Him more than, or as much as anything we could possibly do on earth, even in our times of trial. So this song, to me it's funny. It's kind of funny. To me it's interesting that this song is such a peppy song. To me it is. It's kind of one of, you get kind of feels good. This is a song about grief. This is a song about how to feel that way in sorrow. But it's not just a song that we sing when life is good, when you get up on time, you're getting the kids to school on time, you get to work on time, the coffee's good, and everything's going your way. This is a time, like I said, this is a song that ought to be sung when we're in the waiting room of the hospital, or when we're at the bedside, or when we're dealing with that child that has walked away from their faith, or a time of national tragedy. Because this song is a statement of our allegiance to God, even when things don't go the way we want them to go. So, when the sun shines and we're in that land of plentiful, blessed be the name of the Lord. But when the road is marked with suffering, when the road is a challenge, my encouragement to you and the encouragement of this song is, may our hearts always choose to say, blessed be the name of the Lord. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away, but blessed be the name of the Lord anyway. If you need to renew your trust in God, maybe this song has spurred you to think a little bit about recommitting your allegiance, if you will, to God. Let us help you with that tonight. We can pray together about that tonight. Or maybe you're ready to take those steps and make those initial steps into Christ by being immersed into Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and then come and join us in this walk. And together, we say, blessed be the name of the Lord. If we can help in any way, let us know while we stand and sing.